All right, good morning. Welcome to Inside Pages on Metro Television. My name is Aldo Moore. It's a pleasure coming your way. Inside Pages is every Saturday from 8 to 10. Here on Inside Pages, we pick the biggest stories that have made the news in the course of the week from the newspapers. What we do is we invite the right guests and ask them the relevant questions. And today, we have very interesting topics for you. Now, the first one is that, before we do that, let me sincerely apologize. We started... For starting this program a little late, it was due to some technical challenges that we faced. We want to sincerely apologize and, state that this won't happen again. We promise this won't happen again. So, viewers, we're sorry. We're sorry about that, and we apologize unreservedly and unconditionally. Anyway, so back to business. Today we have two interesting topics. The first one has to do with that viral video which was circulating social media, where the president was actually seen asking some chiefs to stand up and greet him or stand up for a handshake. Now, this matter has been roundly and widely condemned by a section of the Ghanaian populace and saying that what the president did was in bad taste and that it was culturally abhorrent, it's culturally unacceptable. And then you have the chieftaincy minister who's actually issued a statement. He says what the president did was correct. There's nothing wrong with what the president has done. What the president has done is it conforms to Ghanaian cultural values, which is when you see the president of this country, you see an elder person, you stand up and greet the person and not the other way around. But we can interrogate that because I've got a statement from the chieftaincy ministry here. So when we get there, we would ask whether what the chieftaincy minister is saying is correct or not. But then there's a more fundamental question, or there's a more fundamental conversation which has to do with a decision that we ought to make as a people, whether we want to go the monarchy way or want to maintain our democracy. And that's one of the things that Professor Michael Pesa-White, who is one of the top brains when it comes to many things, political communication strategies, when it comes to political science, when it comes to cultural studies, and so on and so forth. And he's a research fellow with the Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana, Legon. And we had a behind-the-scenes conversation. He said, look, for him, what this means is that we ought to ask ourselves that hard question. And I'm sure that he's here. And so he would throw some more light on why he thinks that is the perspective that we ought to look at this conversation from. But the second issue is that now Ejisu has I'm not going to say he's an MP yet because he would have to be sworn in by the House of Legislature, but he's the MP elect. Let me put it that way. He's the MP elect. He's called Kwabena Boateng. Kwabena Boateng is a private legal practitioner. He's also a lecturer at, I think, one of the universities in Ashanti region. I think Apia Menka University, I believe so. And he beat his closest rival, that's Kwabena Owusu Addo, in that fiercely contested elections. But a few issues have come up, and we'll look at those issues after this break.
The smallest chief in Ghana, the littlest chief in Ghana, when he or she presides over a traditional ceremony, is boss. And even the president within that traditional ceremony is subject to that littlest chief. The situation changes when you move to the International Conference Center or to the, where is it that we normally swear in the presidents? When you go there, no one can take precedence over the president, the vice president, the Speaker of Parliament, the Chief Justice. No, because that is a formal event that comes under Article 57(2) of the Constitution. And at that point, all the chiefs, including the biggest chiefs in Ghana, must rise for the president and the others in that order of precedence.
Well, wasn't that an interesting submission or an interesting perspective that Professor Raymond Atoguba, who is also one of the renowned legal brains in this country, sharing about what he thinks about where a chief's jurisdiction and the president's begins. But that will feature prominently in the conversation we're just about to have. Let me say that let me just quickly introduce my guest for today. And let me first of all introduce my resource persons, and then I'll come back and play. We have quite a number of things that we need to do before we start the conversation. So, Professor John Osai-Kwapo is a CDD fellow, CDD Ghana fellow, and also a political scientist. He's actually joined us via Zoom. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. Sorry, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, that's
good
what happens.
Good morning, Moro. My pleasure.
That's what happens when you're combining evening and morning programs, you know.
Precisely, understood.
That's fine. Anyway, so thank you very much for joining us. Let me also say that I have Professor Michael Kwesa-White, who is a political scientist, a senior research fellow, Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana, Legon. Prof, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. And we'll also, at some point, be joined by Andy Apiakubi. He's a member of parliament for the Asante-Achim North constituency. That's in the Ashanti region. And he'll be joining us shortly. But let me do this. So, Derek, let's read the response by the Chieftaincy Minister as far as this matter is concerned before we start with our conversation. So this is the statement from the Chieftaincy Ministry, and it says, Ministry of Chieftaincy Religious Affairs clarifies tradition of respect for authority. In response to recent discussions regarding our traditional norm of showing respect, of standing up to greet our president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, it says that the Ministry of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs issues this statement to provide clarity on the matter. The tradition of showing respect for authority, deeply ingrained in Ghanaian culture, holds significant importance in fostering unity, order, and mutual respect within communities. As a symbol of this tradition, it is customary for individuals to stand when greeting elders, leaders, or persons of authority as a gesture of deference and reverence. It says this request for chiefs to observe this tradition, especially at public events, stems from our commitment to upholding and preserving Ghanaian cultural values, including the principles of respect and hierarchy. It is important to note that the president's position on this tradition is intended as a reaffirmation of cultural norms that underpin Ghanaian society. The call for chiefs to stand when greeting him at public events is not intended to undermine the dignity or autonomy of traditional leaders. Rather, it is a recognition of their esteemed role in Ghanaian society by embracing the head of state, thereby showing brotherly love and mutual respect. And it goes ahead to say it is also to be remembered that at all times the Constitution as set out in Article 57(2) states that the president, just hold on a second, let me look at this. Okay. Right. So the call for chiefs to stand when greeting him at public events is not intended to undermine the dignity or autonomy of traditional leaders. Rather, it is a recognition of their esteemed role in Ghanaian society by embracing the head of state, thereby showing brotherly love and mutual respect. It is also to be remembered at all times the Constitution as set out in Article 57(2) states that the president shall take precedence over all other persons in Ghana. Indeed, the president is the head of state, head of government, and commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ghana, and it is regarded as the foremost representative of the nation, both domestically and internationally, right? And it continues to say that chiefs have been asked to accord respect to the president by standing up to greet him at public events. Indeed, on no occasion has the request for chiefs to stand up to greet him been made within the confines of their palaces, because he recognizes the sanctity of their ancestral spaces. Instead, the protocol where at public events, chiefs rise to greet him, as indeed is stated in the Constitution, is meant to give credence to this unique national provision. The dynamic illustrates a harmonious blend of modern governance with rich tapestry of Ghana's cultural heritage. For the avoidance of doubt, it is important to reiterate that at no point during the president's visit to Damango on Saturday, 27th April 2024, was the Yagbonwura asked to stand up and greet the president as minister, as minister. I was with the president at the event, and as seen clearly on videos, the president, beaming with smiles, walked over and paid homage to the Yagbonwura, who was the host of the event in Damango. The general public is urged to avoid this deliberate and misleading piece of the propaganda which has been distributed by mischief makers. In conclusion, the Ministry of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs reaffirms President Akufo-Addo's commitment to upholding Ghanaian cultural values and fostering harmonious relations within the nation. The tradition of showing respect for authority, including the request for chiefs to stand when greeting the president at public events, serves as a testament to Ghana's rich heritage and tradition. Signed, Stephen Asamoah Boateng, Minister for Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs. Prof, you saw the video. You've heard public commentary. Some have condemned it, some have said, some have okayed it. What do you make of it?
So thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers. So prior to this particular video, I think that we need to take a step back and appreciate the fact that this has been in the works, coming slowly in the shadows without the kind of public uproar that it has attracted, but now it has. And the first time I saw a video of this kind, I believe, was somewhere, I believe last year, when there was a program by, I believe, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources at the University of Ghana, where some chiefs attended. And I think in the course of singing the national anthem, you could see the president directing the Greater Accra Regional Minister, Henry Kote, and others to get a particular chief or some chiefs to stand up. And I think subsequently, after the program, the chiefs issued a statement, or the particular chief issued a statement explaining the circumstances surrounding his inability to stand up at the time, and basically making reference to, health-related matters. After that, we saw a number of other videos too. We saw videos of the president, ordering some chiefs, I believe, in Oti region to stand up. And then the one we saw in Damango recently. We also saw the president in other spaces. We saw the president in the palace of the Asante-Hini, or in an environment where the Asante-Hini was, and then also in another video, in a space where the Ochi-Hini were as well. The contrast between these were that in those other places, with the exception of the Asante-Hini and then the Ochi-Hini's places, the president was instructing chiefs to stand up. That is, in the places where these two chiefs were not the ones he was engaging. But in the spaces where, he was engaging the Asante-Hini and Ochi-Hini, he gladly, greeted them when they were seated. And I guess that is what is informing the kind of clarification the Ministry of Chieftaincy appears to be providing, which is that if you look at those videos carefully, the Ochi-Hini and the Asante-Hini were met in their palaces, and so therefore, in those spaces, they could sit and have the president greet them. Whereas in the case of the other chiefs, that were not to be. I think that kind of explanation is very weak, and that there is a sense in which it is an exercise in political patronage. And the reason I say so is that we have to be careful we don't create the impression that the authority vested in the president is present everywhere and anywhere he appears.
Okay.
But the authority of the chief is absent as long as he moves out of the palace.
Right.
I think that chiefs largely preside over jurisdictions. And if it is okay for a president's authority because he's voted by the majority of Ghanaians, if it's okay for a president's authority to spread across the country so that wherever he is, he's seen as performing the presidential functions, then I think it is also just fair that for a chief, anywhere within that chief's jurisdiction, his authority is still within him, so that you are not just a chief of a palace, but if you are a chief of, let's say, Osudoku, anywhere that is classified as Osudoku land, you are still a chief of that particular place. Right. Or if you are a chief of, let's say, Nungwa, anywhere that is classified as Nungwa. So that if a function is happening outside of your palace, but is within your jurisdiction, you are still a chief within that space. Outside of that space, you probably might just be an ordinary citizen, so that if you are meeting the president there, then it raises a completely different question. But I think fundamentally, we also need to ask ourselves, what is really the basic issue here? I mean, in the midst of the poverty that is basically ravaging this country, in the midst of our debt crisis, in the midst of challenges with higher education, secondary education, basic education, in the midst of sanitation challenges, is respect for the president in terms of chiefs standing up the most important issue that we feel strongly about as a nation at the moment. I don't think this is really the case. I think that we should be going with the notion that respect is earned and not demanded. I don't think that a president should openly be seen instructing people to stand up and greet him. We elect presidents or leaders to provide services to the citizenry. And in this case, it includes the chiefs as well. And public functions are spaces where presidents have opportunity to explain what they have been doing or to provide some ideas about what they intend to do to alleviate the challenges that confront people. So that when those public spaces have been turned into theater of display of authority, then I think that we have a major problem. And for me, again, the paradox here is the fact that we are happy to have political leaders who intend to become presidents, as we saw in the case of Nana Addo and others, go around the country literally cutting the alliances of chiefs and pleading with them to rally the support of their traditional areas behind their political parties. And then soon after winning power, as we have seen demonstrated in those videos, the president was out there instructing chiefs to stand up and greet him. I think that really, raises a number of concerns. And again, what has perhaps become, for me, a baffling issue is that since 1992, why is this now an issue? We have seen President Rawlings and how he related to chiefs. We have seen President Akufo and how he related to chiefs. We have seen President Mills and how he related to chiefs. We've seen President Mahama and how he related to chiefs and how he continued to relate to chiefs. Why is President all of a sudden ordering chiefs to stand up and greet him or show reverence to him in public? And why is that of importance now? Are we saying that the chiefs for all these years have been disrespectful of the authority of the president or of the space of the president? And so for that matter, they should now be made to stand up and greet the president. I think the country is facing bigger issues, and we must really be more concerned about how to deal with those bigger issues, rally all the talents within this country to deal with those problems, so that, these kind of what I call symbolic and form-related issues should completely take a backstage. Look, the contrast is this. Over the years, I have seen chiefs stood up on their own whilst a president is in an event where they are hug or embrace or give a handshake without anybody asking them to do so.
Right.
I've seen that with President Rawlings before. I've seen that with President Akufo before. I've seen pictures of that with President Mills and President Mahama as well. And so I think that we should not create a problem out of a situation that I believe, to a very large extent, does not really need to be problematized. The last point I want to make on that, okay, if you can permit me, is the fact that this actually raises a much more fundamental issue about the the structure and the nature of our society or our country. I mean, our constitution establishes a republic. And so, to that extent, we need to abide by the principles and philosophies of what a republican is supposed to be. We have a democracy within the republic. We really need to engage in a much deeper conversation about the space, the place, the role of the chiefs. This issue about chiefs is not new. If you recall, it was a big issue in the early post-colonial era. And I remember very well one of the statements I read about Kwame Nkrumah was in his frustration about chiefs, threatening that if they don't take care, he will make sure that they run and leave their authorities, symbols of authority behind. Right. And so I will suggest that we approach this thing in a manner that, first of all, does not undermine the important traditional and cultural spaces of the chiefs, but more importantly, that it does not also belittle the place of, let's say, the president in this matter. But I will argue that, look, I don't think that this is something that the presidency or the government should have even invited onto itself in the first place. You're a president, you go to an event, nobody is contesting your place and your authority. I mean, it doesn't speak well, I mean, visually and optics-wise, to be seen, I mean, asking people to stand up. I think that is completely off the mark. Thank you.
I see. Prof, thank you very much. Let me again say that I've been joined, we've also been joined by the Honorable Andy Akufo-Addo. He's taking his seat, where he's settling in, and once he's done with that, we would, would hello him if there's any such phrase, But let me just say that Professor Osai Kwapong has joined us. No, we're not joined. He's been on Zoom, as I did indicate earlier. I even actually introduced him. So I'll go to him straight to get his preliminary thoughts on this, and then we can get to some specifics, because the specifics would have to, for me, come down to the issue that I raised earlier when I was introducing the program, which is we have to ask ourselves the hard question, where do we really want to focus on? Do we want to wholeheartedly embrace our democracy, or we want to maybe start a conversation whether we want to start looking at Ghana, or whether we want to go the monarchy way, where the power of the chief is what rules and not the power of the president, or we should just just maintain what we have, but then manage it in such a way that everybody knows where their power ends and where somebody else's begins. So I guess that let me just say hello to the Honorable Andy Akufo-Addo. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much.
Good morning, my brother.
It's a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, I'm happy to have been invited.
My viewers are excited anytime you come here. They say you bring a lot of calm. You and Prof, is that you bring a lot of calm, a lot of the intellectual argument is much higher when the two of you are here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. What Metro TV is going to do is
thank you very much for those kind words. Yes. Prof, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Good to see you again.
I realize that Ghanaians are really sick and tired of the noise.
Of the banter,
the noise is just too much. You may not have millions watching, but even if it says 100,000, these are quality 100,000 people watching, and these are very influential people. Anyway, it's honorable. Good to see you.
Thank you.
I don't know when you saw the video, what for you was running through your mind? I mean,
to be honest with you, I was very unhappy seeing what I saw.
Really?
But I want to associate myself with Prof when he says that we have major issues in the country confronting us, and that we need to mobilize opinions about major issues, try and solve bread and butter problems rather than associating with. But nevertheless, chieftaincy is an institution that has survived all the regimes, you name it. Even it survived the colonial regime, it survived pre-colonial, post-colonial, through the military regimes survived. And it is the only institution that our various constitutions have also restored and maintained and even sustained.
True.
So we don't have to take chieftaincy lightly. And, for the optics, as Prof was saying, it pays for one to be seen to be showing courtesy, particularly to traditional authority. I do that all the time because, indeed, as you even grow and graduate into and out of various institutions, that is the final destination. If you behave well through your life, chances are that in your later age, you may be honored with a stool and then ushered into chieftaincy. So we must be careful when we're dealing with issues of chieftaincy.
Yeah.
And from the constitutional perspective, we have seen constitutions endorse and promote chieftaincy. So we need to be careful there. More so when chieftaincy affects the generations behind, generations surviving, and generations unborn. So when you touch chieftaincy, you touch our ancestors, you touch people who are living, and you touch generations yet to come. So we have to be a little careful. But I will just point some accusing finger at the president's security and protocol, who probably encouraged the president to do what he did.
Okay.
Because I could see some people trying to command some chiefs to stand up. That was very undiplomatic.
Right.
You understand? Normally, when
so what should the president have done?
Normally, when the president or somebody like that is coming, the MC could have announced that here comes the president. Please, can we acknowledge the president by standing up to him and that kind of thing, so that they don't leave that to the president to do. And in any case, for the optics, sometimes it's necessary that people in elective authority must show decorum to the people who elect them.
That's right.
And I would imagine that, in fact, for me, if president got there and even bowed to the chief, it would not be just surrendering your authority, but showing courtesy. So I would have done that if I was president. Unfortunately, there were people in front of him who attempted to demand the rising of the chiefs, and that may have affected the president anyhow. Be it as it was, I'm sure the chiefs also stood up and embraced the president. But in some cases, most of the cases, when presidents come, it is an opportunity to show your affection towards the president. And in that discourse, you could whisper something into his mind, his ears, for probably support in development or something. So it is also important for chiefs to realize that whoever is in power has the control over the purse. And therefore, if you are courting his support, then that is one of such positions and situations that you can court his support. So it's a two-way thing. I would not wait for a president to come and tell me to stand. I will not also sit, if I was a chief, for president to come and greet me.
Especially at a public event.
A public event.
Which is outside of your palace.
Yes. I would stand up and even beckon towards the president and, give him a hug and possibly whisper something into his ears. I mean, so it's a two-way thing. But as Prof said, and I associate myself with it, let us not spend too much time with this. Let's learn from it. All of us are picking notes so that in future we all behave the way that society expects us to do. And let's rather focus on the bread and butter issues that confront the nation and the people of Ghana. So I hope that we'll bring this discussion to a close. I'm very positive that the president is also learning something from this. I'm also sure that the president's security and his associates will also learn something from it. We'll all improve. We'll get better. So let us not be consumed with what we think is unjust or unfair or improper in the face of the populace.
Right.
And continue to move on. We'll learn. Everybody is learning. So every day provides an opportunity to learn. I think the president will also learn something.
Well, so when you read Stephen Asamoah-Boateng's statement, where he says it is also to be remembered that at all times that the Constitution, as set out in Article 57(2), states that the president shall take precedence over all other persons in Ghana. Indeed, the president is the head of state, head of government, and commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ghana. And it is regarded as the foremost representative of the nation, both domestically and internationally. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Chiefs have been asked to accord respect to the president by standing up to greet him at public events. Indeed, on no occasion has a request for chiefs to stand up to greet him been made within the confines of their palaces, because he recognizes the sanctity of their ancestral spaces. Instead, the protocol where at public events chiefs rise to greet him as indeed is stated in the Constitution is meant to give credence to this unique national provision. Now, this dynamic illustrates a harmonious blend of modern governance with a rich tapestry of Ghana's cultural heritage. Now, it's becoming one too many, where the president is seen as not according to the fullest level the kind of respect he must give to chiefs, some chiefs, not all chiefs. In fact, when you listen to public commentary on this matter, people say, well, he wouldn't do this if it was Akufo-Addo who was there at that event. He wouldn't do this if it was Ochinhene. And I'm saying this not because I'm just saying what the public commentary has been like. If it was Ochinhene who was at a public event, the president wouldn't even imagine asking the Ochinhene to get up and shake hands with him or to get up and accord him that respect. But then he does that to other chiefs.
I can see Minister for Chieftaincy struggling to justify what happened. I can see him struggling.
Yes.
And his language suggests that he is struggling. And why the need to struggle to justify that which everybody sees as unwarranted.
Right.
So for me, I don't buy his argument that the Constitution...
President takes precedence over everybody?
President is the number one person in the country. Everybody, there is no challenge to that position. Nevertheless, you see, even in our culture, you see, our Constitution should also be read through our cultural, context.
Yeah. Okay.
In our culture, we say old men. You can find an old man who probably you will not see anything worthy in terms of wealth.
So he's a nobody.
But he is an old person.
Yes.
And if you see somebody that we call opening, you must accord the necessary courtesy and respect.
Right.
It doesn't matter who probably you are within our cultural context. Right. That is how Ghanaians behave.
Okay.
So we cannot be un-Ghanaian when within the Ghanaian space. And I think that let us acknowledge that for once
something didn't go right.
It didn't go right.
Okay.
And again,
not be repeated.
At all, if President wanted to react to the person not standing up, the chief not standing up, and he took so much offense in that, he could have just greeted and passed, rather than just comment. Because when a chief sits in a public place like that, and the chief is chairing, and indeed in all functions, when there is a chairman, irrespective of who comes there, you accord the position of the chairman. You greet the chairman.
That's right.
Say, Mr. Chairman, maybe. And even if a president is going to give an address, he will address the chair. Yeah. Give the necessary courtesies to the chair before you continue. So in a place where the chief is in state, sitting in state, we will see that it is his function, for which reason we are attending his function. And for which reason we have to also accord his office at that place, the necessary courtesies. Right. And indeed, he is hosting me, so I have to be courteous to him. And that is the way I understand it from a cultural context. And we don't have to deviate. The Constitution respects our chieftaincy so much. And we have to also give reverence to the Constitution and, for that matter, our chieftaincy institution. So, Honorable Minister, if there is something that didn't go too well, it is important for you to apologize to the community. I mean, it doesn't go from you when you apologize for something that you actually did not intend to do. Sometimes we are overtaken by events and positions and, even euphoria of the celebration and the environment. And we may act contrary to what we would have done if the situation was very normal. So if you go contrary to what you yourself expected to have done, you just apologize and learn something from it. Okay. I'm sure that an apology from the minister to the audience and the chief would have served a better purpose than what he's trying to do.
I get it. So I think basically this wasn't tidy.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, let me just make a quick point. I think one of the major issues from this is the lesson it brings to handlers of presidents in this country. And particularly, we need to pay attention to what kinds of conversations go on before programs become open and we see. Because I don't want to assume that there's a program happening in OT region, no conversations had gone on between the organizers of the program over there, and the president, apart from the formal invitation, and then all of a sudden the president moves straight to the place.
Okay.
I mean, I believe that protocol requires that, detailed conversation about sequence of events and what is expected and what is not expected.
Who will not be there.
Exactly. Might have occurred. And the president too would have been properly briefed. Like I said, look, you go online and see. You see several videos of former presidents in this country encountering chiefs. It's beautiful. Hugs, handshakes, all kinds of embrace, and whatever the case may be. This is the first time it's happening, and I think that this really shouldn't have, been an issue at all.
That the conversation has not been politicized.
Politicized, yeah.
I'm very happy about that.
Right.
That we are speaking as Ghanaians and coming through our culture and explaining what ought to have been because of what we are, who we are as Ghanaians. And indeed, we are not also maybe taxing presidents or attacking presidents or saying it's a presidential behavior. No. We are saying that this particular president has done this, and we say that it didn't go too well. And I watched videos of President Mahama with some market women, and I watched videos with Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, Vice President, in the marketplace. Right. And I saw how the market women were hugging him, and he was openly. Hugging. In fact, he had even defied protocol at the time. Openly embracing everybody, even school kids. I saw a video yesterday with him and school kids, school children, and some nurses. You see, open access to him and enjoying them, and they enjoying him. I think it's a different ball game altogether when you look at Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the man, and you look at Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the vice president, and you see that he will be somebody that we will enjoy very much, and the people will enjoy him very much. And that, coming from where he's coming from, when he becomes president, indeed, I have seen President Mahama in presidency also, and you see the kind of love that he wanted to enjoy, and the love that Vice President Bawumia is also enjoying. So it is not a presidential behavior and attack. It is probably a personal and a one-off situation that we are saying it was unwholesome. Okay. So I like the conversation. It has not been politicized. Yeah. But let us all, in fact, all of us find ourselves in situations where we have elderly people before us. So they say, honor thy father and thy mother. It is the only order in the Bible that is followed by a sanction, so that your life will be long on this earth. It is the only command in the Bible that comes with its sanction. So we must be careful when we are confronted with situations where we need to show courtesy, we need to show love, and we need to show respect to, and they say, thy father and thy mother. By interpretation, it means anybody older or anybody deserving of their respect.
Right. Let me go to Professor John Osai-Kwapong. Prof, you've been listening into the conversation. You've seen the video yourself. What are your thoughts?
Good morning once again, and good morning to Honorable and Prof as well. And I share the sentiments that they have also expressed in the sense that, first of all, this is a very recent issue. I don't even recall this happening in President Akufo-Addo's first term, and even maybe at the beginning of the second term. I think this is a very recent incident, and therefore a very recent conversation that is emerging. And so that's what I initially found, a little bit odd about the sequence of events. I did reach out to a friend because I said to myself, well, is there some established protocol? Because I wasn't sure whether either party was violating some kind of established protocol where, how do you behave in the presence of, the president or otherwise. So that for me was, was both odd and a little worrying. I don't believe that the president intends to disrespect traditional authority and the chiefs. I also don't believe that the chiefs who sit do so as a sign of disrespect for the president. And for me, then it is how you ensure that whatever public protocols are observed when these two important persons, in our society meet, that there's that mutual respect that is recorded, whether one is standing or sitting or vice versa. You just want to make sure that that mutual respect is there. Which leads to me to my next point is it's the way, if you watch the video, it's also the way that it was done. So let's even just assume that the proper protocol in that moment was that in the presence of the president, they had to stand up to greet him. Fair enough, right? But it's the hand gestures, right? The body language, the way it was done. I think any fair-minded observer looking at it would cringe a little bit, because then it didn't look like the chiefs were getting the respect that is due them, that we have always accorded them. And I think it's Prof who said sometime, or it's Honorable who said the president's handlers sometimes must also become more culturally sensitive to some of these things, because in the eyes of the public, the last thing you want to do is to create the impression that the president has no respect for traditional authority, which I don't believe that this president doesn't have respect for traditional authority. The last thing I would mention is I found the statement from the Ministry of Chieftaincy also a little odd, particularly with respect to its statement about Article 57.2, that says that the president is sort of the preeminent person and takes precedence above all Ghanaians. I don't believe that is what the framers of the Constitution intended, right? Which is that because the language is the president takes precedence over all other persons in Ghana, that it sort of makes him either imperial or more human than the rest of us. No, I believe that it has to be understood within the context of his executive powers and the authority that is vested in him as president. So I found that connection between 57.2 and therefore that being a basis for the president, for traditional authority standing to greet the president, quite odd. For me, at the end of the day, I hope that there are important lessons learned from this, because ultimately what matters is that we give due recognition to our traditional authority. As Honorable said, the institution of chieftaincy has survived colonialism, has survived the military era and all of that. It's a very enduring institution. And I'm sure we would all agree that relationships between traditional authority and our constitutional setup, especially the office of the president, throughout the Fourth Republic has been very cordial. They've all shown mutual respect for each other, etc., etc. And so I just hope that this incident doesn't become an incident that chips away at that traditional harmony that we've seen between our chiefs and presidents.
Do you find anything wrong with the president himself personally asking the chief stand up and greet him when indeed when the state was actually state protocol, and also you also saw his bodyguard asking the same chief to stand up? John Obo and Diapia Kubi is of the view that, look, the president could have just, bypassed after greeting him, just walk away. And then later, the chief could have been, his attention could have been drawn to the fact that you should have, stood up to greet the president. Do you think that what the president did at the spur of the moment, what had to be done, because he felt that he should have been accorded that respect, and that respect hadn't been accorded him, and so I had to tell him that, look, Charlie, get up and accord me that respect. Or you should have just, or you agree with those who say just walk away and then get it sorted later.
As they always say, hindsight is always 20/20 vision, right? Yeah. In that moment, probably the president felt that if, according to the statement from the Ministry of Chieftaincy, it seems to suggest that something has been communicated to chiefs that you ought to stand when the president arrives at a public event.
Yes.
So assuming that knowledge, they had that prior knowledge, but even that, for me, it was more the way it was done, and probably just like Honorable said, you could have, acknowledged the chiefs, maybe a salute, a greeting, a hello, a wave. At the end of it, then you can find a way to communicate to them that, look, this is the protocol, or otherwise, when I arrive at a function at which there's the presence of chiefs. Because again, for me, if you watch the video and it seems like it's a sort of a forceful get up and the pointing of, the fingers to the chest, like me, you, up kind of a thing. Again, the appearance of it did not send for me the right message.
I've been reading before this program. I was reading up people's opinions about this development, and there was actually a chief who granted an interview to a radio station, GVC Radio, and this is what he says. Very instructive. He says that is the Ogwa to Fuhin. He says, we have the paramount chiefs, the divisional chiefs, sub-chiefs, and the Odikro, as well as the honorary chiefs. Nobody in Ghana is above a paramount chief, emphasizing that it is not in any protocol for a paramount chief sitting in state to rise up for anyone. Again, if any paramount chief decides to rise for a former president, incoming president, or sitting president to greet, is that person's prerogative. Our protocols say that if a chief sits, he doesn't rise up again until the whole program is over, and that a paramount chief's seat is guarded to ward off any attempt by bad people from tampering with the seat. So you now begin to understand why the chief decided to sit, even as the president was asking him to, or when the president approached him. But anyway, so I'll come back to you, Prof. Let me, Professor White wants to quickly chip in something, and then maybe we can all wrap up.
So just to kind of stretch the limits of this notion about whether this is even relevant a little bit.
Yeah.
I think presidential style, leadership style, is also extremely important in this matter.
Okay.
I mean, nothing prevents the president from approaching the chiefs to kind of broadly open his arm as though he wanted to hug. They would naturally stand up and hug and then shake hands and then they move on. So the individual himself needs to think a bit more about how do I make sure that I don't create a scene and at the same time I also achieve, that is, if I intend to achieve something, I achieve that particular thing in the space within which we are. But look, we spent 1 hour discussing basically, chiefs not standing up and president authorizing them to stand up, when really we could have been talking about people in our communities who have no safe drinking water, and sanitation challenges and so on. So we really need to return the conversation to where it belongs, which is that we elect people to perform. They must perform. And normally when you perform and perform very well, some of these things that we are expecting from chiefs and people in the communities in terms of reverence and respect and everything, they come naturally. You don't go looking for them. And I think that, there is a certain mood in the country currently that probably might also be playing out in how people are relating to, president coming to events, which is that things are not going well. In this country, economically, socially, politically, everybody appears to just basically resign themselves to, and when such situations happen at a national level, people's source of comfort is actually their chiefs. I'll give you an example. In the late 1990s, when government decided to begin to introduce some kind of cost sharing into our tertiary educational system, and fees. User fees were flying all over the place, and many people realized that they couldn't afford. many people returned to their chiefs. It was around that time, for instance, that Otumfuo, for instance, set up the Otumfuo Educational Fund. Clearly, he provided a hope for, people when the state appeared to be failing. And that was just one. Toby Afede and several others did the same thing as well. So I think that in the end, when people feel that the holders of authority or power holders are actually using the power entrusted in their hands to deliver basic services that allows people to live decent life and have meaningful livelihood, some of the things, the happiness, the things that come with happiness and vivaciousness will naturally emerge. And the absence of that is clearly the reason we are seeing what
As you're landing, I want to touch briefly on the issue you raised about whether we have to revisit the conversation about whether we want to go the monarchy or we just want to stay with our democracy. Why do you think this is important?
Well, I think the thing is this. Look, unlike Europe, where
the Queen or the King,
period of Enlightenment
yes.
Basically was an attack against monarchies,
yes.
and people questioned the authority of the monarchies and came up with the notion that, look, we all have reasoning power and that your source of power is questionable and so on and so forth. And so they basically decided that, look, let's moderate this. In the case of Britain, let's moderate this. Let's have the monarchy and also have, the constitutional governance in democracy, which is what they have now. In the case of France, they did away with the monarchy completely and established republic. Now, we haven't really had that conversation. We basically inherited the structures we are calling Ghana, Togo, Benin from the colonial system. And it is not just territorial entities that we inherited. We also inherited the practices, the norms that came with it. So we have a situation where we haven't had a real intellectual and philosophical debate about the place of traditional authorities in the country. We take them as given because they embody our culture. And I think the encounter with colonialism also created a certain resentment for Western institutions. So we are happy to, idolize our traditional institutions.
Prof, give me 1 minute. In fact, I very much agree with you when you landed by saying that our traditional system is taken as given, was there before. But when you say we have not interrogated the chieftaincy institution and understood the philosophical justification to our chieftaincy institution, that much I disagree because this notion of constitutionalism as built within the space 1992 up to now is very much un-Ghanaian.
Right.
And that the Ghanaianness of the various constitutions have been in the entrenchment of chieftaincy in the various constitutions. Okay. And in any case, governance as a whole has developed from chieftaincy in our context in Ghana. And that the attempt by the colonial power to impose their brand of democracy has not survived.
Actually, I don't even see it as a disagreement. As I see it more as a complementary to
it. Absolutely, I was just about to say
the point really is if we actually encounter that conversation more strongly,
we would reinforce the presence of chieftaincy within our governance system.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Probably.
There's talk about second chamber, for instance.
Yes. And there's also...
because we have a unicameral. You can look at the bicameral.
There's always confusion about constitutional interpretations, even in Ghana. And the constitutional system, the democracy that we have, the consolidation of power in the presidency, for example, which is contrary to the expectations of the principles of constitutionalism itself, which says we have to distribute power. So we are doing the converse of constitutionalism as by law explains. And we are having a system of governance that is kicking against that which we purport to want to copy in a democracy. So we are confused. Our constitution has confused us the more. Because on one hand, constitutionalism expects powers to be distributed. Now, our constitution has rather aggregated power invested in one person. So you see, there's the constitutional confusion.
And it has implications for, even how we historicize what is happening now. Because the entity called Ghana, until the colonial era, was not ruled by one single, individual. Different segments and different societies had their own political authority.
And in fact, in all those societies, when the chief sat in state, and there was a matter before them, everybody will bring an opinion.
That's right.
Before the chief will aggregate all of them and maybe bring a summary and a ruling. And that was more democratic than rather a president says, you go there, you come there, you come here, and that kind of thing. Right. You see, so we must be developing on our strength, not on our weakness.
So if you read, for instance, the works of Professor Redu, I think it's Kwame Redu and Jechi, two of the Ghana's foremost African philosophers, they've made the point that contrary to the view that the African traditional political system was undemocratic, it was democratic in many ways. In many, many ways. Chiefs were not just arbitrary people who just rose up and then decided to. They were laid down procedures. There may not have been an election as we have it now, secret ballot, but there was a process agreed upon by the societies and the communities, which they were very, happy with, by the way. And so the question is, do we want what was referred to in the philosophical literature on African system governance as consociational democracy? Democracy that is built around consensus building, as Honorable was saying, where they try to listen to all sides of the case and then try to kind of make a decision in the mutual interest of communal harmony rather than adversarial, where it's like I take it and then I kind of don't care what you are going through or what you care about the situation, which is what we are practicing now. And so we need to, again, begin to have that conversation. Especially in the context of, look, I always say that if there is one thing that Ghanaians, and a subject to debate, Ghanaians will appreciate about Nana Akufo-Addo is the fact that the experience of 7 years going into the 8 years, in my view, has taught us a lot of things that are wrong with our constitution. And that if we would take constitutional reform forward, we would need to kind of review some of the things that have gone on that we felt that do not belong to the space of leadership. And I believe that when we take those kinds of steps, we may come up with a system that have a perfect, blend. What we are doing now with our democracy is just the continual perpetuation of the colonial agenda, really. For the most part, we need to look within ourselves, our cultural values, and what do they offer us in terms of governance, and then promote that. But then I have to address this fundamental question of how do you deal with the multiplicity of chiefs in a modern sovereign entity? And that is also a question that we can address when we put our minds to it.
Prof, I don't know if you have anything to say about this. I see, one of the things that I see from what they're saying is you have the architecture of our constitution appears to be in one hand empowering chiefs, but in another hand actually disempowering them in a way, so then, like we say in tree, Prof, do you have any thoughts you want to share on this based on what there's very interesting perspectives that Honorable and the people. Remember, he's also a private legal practitioner, and also Professor Michael White has said. Do you have any thoughts you want to share on that?
Yeah, so my only contribution is, in fact, if you read the late Professor Kwame Jechi's Tradition versus Modernity, Philosophical Reflections on the African Experience, he actually has a brilliant chapter on political configurations, democracy, and really draws your mind to the fact that, quite contrary to what people may believe, as even Honorable has said, the institution of chieftaincy was very democratic in nature, and our societies were democratic in nature in terms of consensus building around issues that affected the community. And when you reflect on a lot of the writings of Professor Jechi, one of the things that at least I take away from it is that how do you ensure that those deeply embedded traditional norms that we were used to can become an asset for a modern configuration, for example, the democracy that we have and the constitution that we have created. And so again, for me, ultimately, as you were posing the question, do we resort to some kind of a monarchy, or how do we get all of this harmonized and working together? I think that we can still have, accord and ensure that, our traditional authorities continue to play an integral role within our governance setup without it being sort of disruptive, to the democracy constitutional setup, and vice versa. As I said previously, we've had very good relationships, or at least the experience so far has been that our traditional authorities have generally have lived, peacefully side by side with the executive constitutional authority. But again, the challenge going forward, as we march towards democratic consolidation, is how do you make sure that you continue to deepen these things so that they don't become points of friction, but rather they become points of harmony? Because again, they play very important roles in their communities. I mean, sometimes before the president would get to a particular community, right? I'm sure we all count on the chiefs to be able to, settle some public issues within that community. You don't always have to wait for the president or a minister or even a member of parliament to come all the way down before some of those things are addressed. So I just believe that there are a lot of important lessons to learn from not just this incident, but again, as Prof said, over particularly the last 7 years, we have a lot of food for thought around executive authority, the nature of our democratic practice, and how we can deepen a lot of those things.
All right. I think it's been a very interesting conversation. And, whereas when we started, it seemed like a very small issue. If you look at how this matter has developed, it tells you there's actually a bigger issue hidden in there. And I can always trust that the two of you have ways of bringing up some of these issues. Yes. Yeah.
There is a president that is going.
Yeah.
And there's an expectation of a man that is coming.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that even from now, the president should be playing a more retiring role.
Okay.
Whilst he allows the incoming to also assume such responsibilities.
Okay.
Because the inferior is more towards him than towards the president.
Right.
So maybe the apathy shown in the general meeting probably is resulting from the expectation that we rather want to see more of the incoming president.
Who is the incoming president?
Well, any of them could be.
Any of who?
Potential incoming.
Any of the presidential candidates.
Right.
Because the expectation is that either this one
So make Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia more the face.
Yes, give him more the face
of the government.
NPP, party
Right.
and government. And maybe President Mahama will also take the face of the NDC.
Okay.
And let them see more of those people.
Yeah.
Because honestly, if there is a retiring chief and there is an incoming one, I'm sure everybody wants to associate with the incoming one. So it is only just natural
I get it.
that at this point in time, it would be better for those people to rather occupy the political space so that we'll be able to enjoy them more and also understand them more so that it will influence our voting. So that we will be able to know if I have to. There is no contest between President Akufo-Addo and President Mahama.
Yeah, he's
There's
done.
no contest.
Nanado is done. Yeah.
The contest is between
Bawumia
Dr. Bawumia and former President John Mahama.
Yes.
So let them enjoy the space and let's give the opportunity to the electorate to do more evaluation and take sides.
Okay.
So the president should be resting now. My
modest
advice.
I agree with the point
wants to finish hard.
on the point of he should be playing a more, like he should be making a transition. And I think that's a very valid and serious point he made.
He should be managing the transition.
The fact of the matter is that he's exhausting his second term. Constitutionally, he can't
and
run
Prof,
it
if
more.
we are not careful, we may have the temptation of attributing what we are seeing to the incoming.
Oh, you mean
we are not careful?
He could end up visiting his sins.
And yes,
on
giving
on Dr.
Bawumia more work to do by way of cleansing before he comes out to advertise himself.
Well, they are already co-joined. I mean, they can be separated.
I'm suggesting that
the theory of co-join.
Co-join.
I don't know whether, there are two schools of thought. There's a school of thought that says that Nana-Addo or Bawumia will be seeing the shadows on Nana-Addo. Or, no, actually, Bawumia will be seeing the shadows on Nana-Addo, which is the two are one. Because it's because the balance sheet. You take the good, you take the bad. There's some also say, no, not necessarily. That's why he's Bawumia. So people are going to judge him based on him.
So if we are going to judge based on him, let him begin to advertise himself more.
The question, though, Honorable, is whether...
Nana-Addo say, I'm still the president.
The question is whether...
Look, in your house.
Let me finish chopping my post.
When you see your child growing, doing the things that
you need to
doing,
start taking,
a
step back.
And allow your child to also grow into your shoes.
I agree.
No, but why are we concerned about... if the president was doing something fundamentally good,
yes,
then it should not be a problem if...
Okay. No. If even that one would be more dangerous.
Well, if Bawumia is seen through his image, right? If it becomes an issue of concern, if the feeling is that there is something we are not too comfortable with, and so let's give this other person the opportunity to define himself.
No, that's not it. I think it's saying the reality is that after 8 years, Nana-Addo's shine dim.
It has dimmed long ago.
Not necessarily. So his point is that, I mean, whether
I get a point. I get
his
a point.
actions or
I
inactions,
get a point.
He becomes.
I mean, in any case,
unpopular.
In any case, it is.
So then allow.
And then again,
the vice president
motivation for him.
To
do his best. Whilst he's watching.
I get it. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to Ojiso. We'll be right back.
The smallest chief in Ghana, the
some of these things are typical of party democracy. After elections, whether it is internal or it is with, at the national level against other political parties, these things do happen, especially with internal elections. They do happen. The tax is for us to go down and then talk to our people. They are our people. They are our people. I do not think that the party is minded, or that me as the MP-elect is minded to neglect anybody. Not at all. Political parties are built with multitudes. You need the people. So my task is to go down there and then be with my people, listen to them. Whatever constitutes the disagreement, my job is to make sure that we judge and then find the common grounds that will benefit.
Just people were saying that for them they would develop.
As I came on the ticket of the government, so it is on that platform, that I'm also standing. So whatever development the state would share, my job is to make sure that I lobby and get a fair share for.
It is a winning mood that we find ourselves in, but it's not, as you may know yourself, it's not a comfortable one. And whether it's comfortable or not comfortable, the important thing is that some of our members, represented by Akufo-Addo, are splitting and leaving the camp. And personally, as chairman of the party, I'm not comfortable. We should be able to bring them all back to the fold, the party's fold, so that come December 7th, there will be no surprises. We should be able to carry the Ejisu seat with ease, as against what we are going through this evening. So that's my next focus, to make sure that the party is reconciled amongst itself. That's what we are looking at. You don't expect Addo to make overtures to us. You don't expect him to do that. So as chairman of the party, I'm going to take that mantle upon myself. The credibility of the album, that issue has not been brought to my attention yet. Because from the national, we don't get involved into the nitty-gritty details of the constituency albums. So if there's anything, we are now going to call for inquiry to find out where there are issues and try to rectify them. We have reconciliation committees at every constituency, at every region, and also at the national. We have reconciliation committees put in place for these purposes. So we will use this machinery to address all issues bordering on disputes and reconciliation before we get into the December general election.
I think
Obi had 150 million, Obi had 250 million. I got to a banner. So as a senior, it's meant to me put I understand my discount, son, I'm my the matter of man. The man, yes, can be a mentor. It was a man who man who went out about only at the Papa Via Mamina for Sobian Fish. And for so many of us, I my discount. Yeah, what's your Azaniato. So what was it? We are putting our delegate Cabana. What about this Cabana? I'm never for Cabana. Most magic, 5 million. Let's have me both make cocoa as a bottom. About saying yes, Cabana.
Wow, how did we get here? It's money, 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 money. You want my vote? Give me money. Anyway, so Ejisu has now an MP elect. He's called Kwabena Boateng. It's now the MP elect for the Ejisu constituency following the passing of the sitting member of parliament, the Honorable John Ampontia Kuma. The election came off this week, and but there have been issues, even though they now have an MP elect. There are issues. There are quite a number of them. We saw the issues of a vote buying, where some of the electors were saying that if you don't give us money, we won't vote for you. Some are also saying that, well, when we vote for them, they leave us, they don't take care of us again, they don't pick our calls, and so on and so forth. And so we want to take our pound of flesh before we vote for them. And there's also issues about internal democracy. Now, you saw the winner himself saying that the NPP itself has to do a lot of, internal healing, because there's some people who are very disgruntled, and the party will really have to sit with them and embark on some reconciliation, activities. In fact, the national chairman himself, Stephen Tim, you saw him saying that. And also the issues about EC officials and the credibility and integrity, which is now being called into question. We saw the MP for Akufo-Addo, Dr. Kingsley Nyako, who we saw him giving out an envelope to some EC officials who have been actually, suspended by the Electoral Commission for actually taking the money from the MP. And so that's also another issue we're going to look at. And also, when you look at the voter turnout, it's actually the lowest so far. We were talking about some 49% voter turnout. It's never happened. 49%, yes.
7.7.
Oh, 50. Oh, okay,
47.0.
47, yeah, 47, yes. That's the lowest voter turnout in any political party stronghold. 47, or let's just say 48%. Extremely low. We want to ask why, what is happening, whether it's a harbinger or a precursor or indication of what to happen in 2024 elections in terms of how the strongholds, the MPP strongholds are going to turn up for the elections or turn out for the elections. And also the man himself who won, he won with, about 50, close to 56%, which is also quite low. If you compare that to the independent candidate who polled more than for 45% or so. Now, so we're going to put all of this together and get my resource persons to... so that's it. That's the percentage. That's 55.79%. So let's say it's almost, if you round it off, we're saying 56%. And then, so here we go. Kwabena Boateng, MPP 27,000. He put 27,782, representing 55.79%. Kwabena also Ediomi, is an independent candidate. He polled 21,000, which is 43.24%. And then you have, others like Beatrice Boache, say Freddie Ajimos, Joseph and Atakora Joseph. You've seen the numbers there. So I'll come to my results. I'll start with Honorable Andy Apiakubi. Honorable, Was this a kind of outcome that you were looking forward to? Even with all the threat that Adjomi was posing? Yes. Okay. Oh, sorry, your mic is off. Sorry. So put it back on. Thank you.
Okay. I'm very disappointed with the voter turnout in Ejuso. More so when the situation is that we are very close to election. Again, Ejuso is a special constituency. If you take away the Kumasi constituencies, Ejuso appears to be one of the second in line to expect a lot of votes from. And if there is this display of voter apathy, it is worrisome. But again, it's a lesson that we have to learn, and we have to develop strategies to overcome such mishap. But if we don't, it will become disastrous for us. Again, if you look at the results, the winner versus the loser, you see the difference is not that much.
Yeah.
And that is also worrying.
About 5,000?
About 5,000. But me, I saw the by-election as a rerun of the primaries, because also he's an MPP man. We can't take that one away from him. The confusion that erupted from our selection process regarding the presidential candidate, it is that which is resonating in the other constituencies as conflict between two parties or independent party and government. And I think if it has survived up to now, then I'm sure that there is a leadership default somewhere, because by now we should have amended, the division. We should have come to some kind of compromise position. And in fact, when it happened that we were going to have an election, in fact, my take, and it was personal, was that, Honorable John Kuma unfortunately passed, but the one he replaced is Honorable Adwoemi. If we had a way, indeed, if you go to Britain, they don't always vote in primaries. No. Mm-hmm. There are various ways of selecting candidates. So at that point in time...
That in itself is also democratic, isn't it?
We cannot say that, so Britain, are they not democratic?
I get it.
So we say that under the circumstances, you need the party together also. So if somebody was heading towards somewhere because he felt cheated in the last primaries, why wouldn't we call him and say, look, we have only 7 months. You hold the fort up to the end of the term. But come 2024 or thereafter, you will go through primaries or something of the sort. And we could have used him as our candidate. I mean, that would have been...
It's a waste of resources.
Yeah, that would have been the best way to go. Indeed, a lot of us...
But Adjomi's crime, I'm told, is that he's seen more as an... how to put it? He's seen more as a friend, a very close friend.
So who do you take me for? Am I also not a friend of Alan Chimatin? And if you like, bring Nana Akufo-Addo. Can he tell you that he's not a friend of Alan Chimatin? So if Adwoemi has committed a crime...
Alan Chimatin is now working against the MPP, so it will not be in the interest of anybody to be seen to be...
Maybe that is what we can point at and try to mend. And indeed, it is better to talk to the one who is aggrieved than expect the aggrieved person to come and talk to you.
Absolutely.
And in all cases, it is the winner that makes the approach to try and court the loser to support you, because he has nothing to lose. True. You have everything to lose if he doesn't come to support you. In my case, I contested against 4 other colleagues. But when we finished, I called all of them to congratulate them. And indeed, when I was going for the Thanksgiving service, I made sure that I invited all of them to participate. And in this time round, in the campaign, I've given them all electoral areas. Because what you do now and in future will determine who will inherit me. This position is not mine. I will also leave it. But you build your profile so that when the time comes, everybody sees you as the heir to the throne, and they will elect you. So I don't, and indeed in my place, none of the contestants is even thinking of an independent candidate. And in fact, there is an independent candidate who is not from that stock. But all of us have decided that we'll come together, pool resources, and beat him squarely. So that's the way to go. And in fact, myself, when I was aspiring to come to Parliament, my expectation was different. Now, if I had to choose between the position I occupied in my previous government, Kufuor's government, and now, I would choose the previous one. But it was out of ignorance that I thought that everything about Parliament was better than anything. So we could have negotiated. I mean, these young guys who were coming, they could have had a better position than coming to Parliament. Unfortunately, we had a situation of them contesting each other, and we have had Lawyer Boateng emerge as our candidate. It is important that Lawyer Boateng go to Akufo-Addo. It is important that our party engage him. It is also important that, in fact, even at the national level, there must be some engagement with the party and Alan Chemate. It is so very important. Because we are in Ghana. We have lost the election by 24,000 votes. So you don't take it for granted that, let him go, he will not make any impression. We cannot afford to lose any 10,000. We cannot even maybe afford to lose 5,000. And therefore, and you are telling me that he cannot attract 5,000 or he cannot attract 10,000. He will definitely not win to become president. But he is so very important to us that we cannot let him go. So we must build a system that can, attract every one of us. Apart from the fact that the voter apathy must be addressed, we need to also solve internal problems. We need to also bring people together, and they should come and help us solve the problem of apathy. Some people will not vote because, I would have voted for maybe Alan. Alan is not a candidate, so I don't have anything going to vote for my party. He is still a party member, though. But he will not vote to a party because he doesn't expect any dividend from his labor, and then he will not come and work. So if you attract Alan to come back, if you attract those to come back, other people who are showing this apathy will also probably rethink. And indeed, we don't have to take it lightly that there are people who say that I won't vote and they'll go away. No. And this issue of monetization in our politics, you see, that which is destroying the faith that people had in political leaders.
So they say when they vote for you, they don't see you again, you don't mind them again. When they call you,
you don't
answer your call.
Not seeing you again is a complaint. We must take that seriously.
Okay.
Indeed, if you come to my constituency, I'm sure hardly would you meet anybody who will say, since we voted for him, we have him busy. Virtually every weekend I'm there. So they cannot say that. But maybe when they say we haven't seen you, it is expectation beyond just the seeing, which maybe would be beyond
it must materially manifest.
Beyond your means. So if they see you but not see you well, that's also another matter.
I'm told it's very expensive to go home.
So it is always expensive to go home. Trust me, you will not go home with any money in your pocket and bring anything back.
What?
And in most cases, if you are not careful, you don't buy your fuel early, you may end up, when my mother was selling some things, I used to go borrow money to buy fuel to come back. But now that she's too frail, I don't have any source like that. Yeah. So I have to be careful always, at least make sure I have petrol. So it is difficult. Wow. But we have also projected ourselves as very rich in the constituencies because of the primaries.
That's interesting. Not because of primaries. There was one guy who said that one of the reasons why he's actually asking the candidates to give him money, because he said an MP came and looked at the house is built. Talking about John Kuma's house. So we see mansion. So you're talking about lifestyle. So I just thought I should.
Unfortunately, not all of us have been that privileged.
Yes.
And indeed, personally, I do my private jobs as a lawyer.
As a lawyer, yes.
And sometimes I earn something small and bring it to politics.
Okay.
I think that is also not fair. So just don't look at the few advantaged ones
and punish
the disadvantaged ones.
Yes.
Because me personally, when I was coming into the politics, I had bought some 400 bags of cement. I was preparing to put up a house. I had to donate all my 400 bags to various communities. And now I don't have one bag sitting there. If you get to the people close to me, they will tell you. But so it is not the case that it is because of Parliament that sometimes when I work and get some money, if I'm going today, a client of mine came to see me yesterday, and he has ensured that I can go back today. You understand? So it is not always the case that if you push me, I will even mention my client and tell you how much he gets.
Okay. Please don't, because they are waiting for you. People are waiting for you. They know how much you're bringing. Yeah, yeah. But it's tough.
It's not always the case that. Yeah. But I'm happy that such people who come to Parliament, most of them will regret. In fact, most of them that had better opportunities in their previous employments do regret a lot when they come to Parliament. Yeah. We need to advertise that and let people understand that this is not a position to earn money. To earn money. No.
It's pure public service.
No, not position to earn money. In fact, in my particular circumstance, I was privileged to be given something last few months.
Yes.
My son, who is a doctor in the US, wanted to pacify me and gave me something.
Yes.
It will be interpreted as a political reward. It is not, because you cannot afford that through politics.
Okay.
So we must lay bare the facts for people to understand. But unfortunately, we don't speak much, so they don't know. They think that when you come to Parliament, we are hoping that the time will come quickly and then we'll step out and then go and enjoy our peace. Yeah. So it's a lesson to all of us.
Yes.
And indeed, when I say all of us, I mean both parties. There is general voter apathy. Because, and again, we are accusing each other. Those of us in the political center, we are throwing mud at each other, creating the impression that when you are in power, you chop. When I am in power, I chop. So at the end of the day, the electorate see both of us as enemies, not the
because you keep hearing you're paying for
you see, So it is the mud that you throw at each other. In fact, those of us in the political space, we are not also helping. We are not helping ourselves. We are not helping the electorates because we are always accusing each other of wrongdoing. I understand there must be some people who will get involved in criminality. Let them be prosecuted within the criminal space.
Right.
And let us also behave well as politicians, not to throw wild accusations against your opponent because you think you must win against him. And therefore, but the accusation you throw at your brother is waiting for you. When he also turns to be in government, we also throw against him.
Do you have any quick thoughts on the Kingsley Nyako's interaction with the Electoral Commission officials?
Well, to be honest, we act as non-Ghanaians. We are Ghanaians. Kingsley Nyako, in fact, me personally, when I'm going through elections, I make sure that I have a kitchen cabinet who will cook for me and distribute the food for everybody on election day.
Does that include?
I'll do that also this December. I do it all the time.
Does that include Electoral Commission officials?
It includes the Electoral Commission, it includes police, it includes NDC.
Yeah, but what business do you have? No, but what business do you have feeding Electoral Commission officials?
No, on the day that they are required to sit at one place.
Yes.
Sit at one place.
But that's not your job.
Not even go out to eat.
Can I just come in, Honorable?
Yes.
I think with the greatest of respect. Look, we have an institution called the Electoral Commission that has employed people and asked them to perform a particular task on that day. We want to believe that beyond the remuneration and compensation given to them after the day's work, the Electoral Commission is minded enough to ensure that their breakfasts, their snack, their lunch, and whatever else they need is provided. We don't have to assume that once they have been thrown out there, they are starving, and so therefore the participants in the space, in the contest, must necessarily take on that responsibility and begin to provide. Because you see, there is a thin line. Just a minute, sir. There is a thin line. Once those individuals are the referees in a contest between you and others, and you are in good faith, and I'm saying good faith, reaching out to provide some relief to them, clearly there is a way in which their very attitude and posture in being impartial and in being fair
will be compromised.
Gets to be compromised. It is not every individual that you go and give food from Honorable Andy Apiakubi said, I should bring you this peche food and everything whilst you are sitting there. And then
I like the qualification.
It may not be. So
and then he takes the food and everything.
Yeah.
And then we also want to continue to enforce the rules of the day rigidly, even if it goes against Honorable Andy Apiakubi.
Yeah.
So it's not everybody who has that, the temerity and the tenacity to actually stick to that once they begin to get those favors from you.
After eating your food.
So after eating the food or after getting the envelope or whatever it gets.
Yes.
So I will suggest
Prof,
that just a minute before you land, sir, that all of us in the space must rather commit to building institutions that are credible.
Right.
The Electoral Commission must, and I'm not saying they did not provide, for they did provide. They must actually make sure that their staff on the ground are comfortable. But beyond that, those of us who are in the political parties or as citizens should not assume that those individuals out there have been neglected and they are starving, so therefore we are magnanimous and very well-mannered and very good intended enough. We have very good intentions, and so therefore we are reaching out to feed them. And I think that is where it becomes an issue.
Thank you very much. This is what ought to happen. But if you engage in the political discourse, particularly during the election time, you will see that it doesn't happen the way we expect it to happen.
Right.
I have never seen anybody come from the Electoral Commission saying that I'm coming to distribute food to even the electoral officials. I've never seen one. I have been through various elections. You don't see it. It doesn't happen. I don't know the remuneration package, whether adequate or inadequate.
Okay.
Yes, but you see clearly
that the whole day.
You see clearly that people are there and they need water, even water. For me,
that's serious.
For me,
it makes them susceptible. You see, that's the thing,
Prof. To be honest,
if
you cross-check.
Remember that
if that indeed happens, then the Electoral Commission has basically positioned its own people to be compromised.
That's another conversation.
That's why I say secondly, I don't expect the Electoral Commission or those staff over there to tell me whether they have been comfortably taken care of, whether they are eating or they have not eaten. I don't expect them to tell me. Professionally,
so that it raises questions about the type of training they are giving.
Professionally, they should be able to say, you know what, Honorable, I'm not taking this. I have been sorted out. I am okay.
Let me develop the point.
Yes.
But again, it doesn't happen like that.
Yes.
And it is the case that the electoral system is such that it is not easy for anybody to want to behave towards one person better than the other in the political space, because we have agents of same numbers for the two different parties who are there and critically watching. And again, there is nothing that you can do to affect the fortunes except that the people who come who are otherwise not qualified. In any case, it's a chain. So even if I qualify you from point 1, point 2 will disqualify you. Point 3, the agents are there.
No, it's not so much about. No, it's not so much about. No, it's not so much about whether they will help you cheat or not. We're discussing the ethics.
Yes,
of the gesture. That's where we are.
The ethics also depends on the resources available to EC when they come to Parliament.
No, but it's regardless, isn't it?
My brother, when they come to Parliament,
yes,
they bring us a budget.
Yes,
we are always critical of the budget, debate it to the minimum.
Yeah, but Prophet said, listen, regardless of what the situation you find yourself in, if Honorable Andrea Apiakubi comes and says, Jiska Caribbean take some food, you should say no, because I'm an easy official.
But you are
I don't want to be seen to be hobnobbing with one.
My brother, look at the practicality. Go to the ground and see for himself. A man who is thirsty and supervising elections, and he will have to go.
Honorable, I think the problem is this. It would have been great if the Electoral Commission is asked by Parliament, for instance, what preparations they normally do in terms of.
They do.
So if they do, then why that?
Prof, they come with their budget. We reduce their budget.
Oh, okay.
I'm telling you,
I
am part of the.
Let me bring in Prof now. Prof has been on the Zoom for some time now. Prof, I don't know what I don't know how you also see this. I know there's a lot of things you want to say about. Yes.
When I go to my police stations, I give NDC people money.
Look, whether you give NDC, MPP, police, everybody else, the point is that it is a culture that is killing our democracy, and we need to stop it.
Resource The Electoral Commission.
No, is it just an issue of resourcing?
Honorable, I don't think it's
I think it's about building ethics. Anyway, Prof, I beg you, let me also bring Prof aside. Prof, because we don't have, we're really running out of time. We have just about 6 minutes to go. I know, can you imagine? Oh my God. Prof, would you briefly want to comment on Ejiso? What do you want to, what are the issues you want to raise briefly so that I can end with Professor Michael Kwesa White?
Sure. So just two quick issues, because I know you mentioned the issue of whether the voter turnout is a question of potential apathy.
Yeah.
Potential apathy for the party.
True.
This is not just the issue, but regionally, if you look at the most recent Global Info Analytics poll on voting intentions, 25% of those who identified themselves as MPP do indicate that they won't vote. If you compare that to the most recent Afrobarometer in 2022, for the Ashanti region, it was 20% indicating that they won't vote. Now that can change between now and election day.
Yeah.
But at least it is one of the signals that I believe the party should pay attention to if the issue of voter apathy, even within their own strongholds, is a concern to them. The other issue for me quickly is the Honorable Kingsley issue. I always say that, we sort of have this position where we juxtapose what I call the legal test versus the appearance test. So if something passes the legal test, then we are okay with it, right? So is it wrong to give somebody money for lunch? Is it wrong to ask someone if they're eating? Does the law, prescribe that and say, no, you can't do that? So once there's nothing, quote unquote, legally wrong with it, you pass the legal test, and that's okay. But for me, it is the appearance test that tends to get a lot of our public officials into trouble, because, in my opinion, they don't seem to be very sensitive to what that appearance can do.
True.
So this is an election being hotly contested between MPP and a former MPP person who has turned an independent candidate, right? It just doesn't look right. And you leave the public to ask too many questions. And the last thing you want is for voters, for your citizens, for any observer to start raising questions about the integrity of your electoral process. And for me, that is the thing that we cannot overlook with regards to this envelope that is purported was offered for lunch. It is, for me, what it does to how people begin to perceive the electoral process. That worries me. That must not sort of be brushed aside, because it's much bigger for me than an electoral officer hasn't eaten, so therefore let me offer them something small for lunch.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for time. It's been wonderful having you, sir. Thank you. So, Professor White.
This is perhaps my first public comment since the passing of John Kuma. Let me convey my condolences to his family and close associates. John Kuma, I knew him from our days in the University of Ghana, especially in student politics, and it's sad for him to have passed away at such a prime age. But let me also say that, look, what is the fuss about AGC? Seriously speaking, it was an election in which the MPP contested against itself. The MPP won, and the MPP got defeated. The real issue really is that in that contest, which involves only the MPP as the victor and the vanquished at the same time, the numbers of people on the voter roll who turned out to vote were significantly low, which is what has been spoken about already. And I think that raises a lot of issues about public perception, happiness or otherwise, of members of the party itself, given that AGC is also known to be a stronghold of the MPP. What bothered me, for the most part, is running an election in your stronghold and witnessing the display of monetization and opulence in the open. I think was quite worrying to me. Why will you want to buy votes in your stronghold? And why were people so confident in also trading their votes? Because for the first time, if I'm not mistaken, we've seen people actually openly trading their votes on the electoral market, if there is anything like that, where they were saying, you have to give me this much before I go and vote, and others were saying, go and vote and come for this much. I think these things are worrying signs, not only for the NPP, but for our democracy. Are there rules and regulations?
Why?
You know, I noticed that in the case of Honorable Kingsley, my understanding as at yesterday was that he was invited by the Special Prosecutor's Office. But that was not the only incident involving money in the elections. We've seen people who granted interviews and said somebody had come to give them packs of weed, somebody had come to give them money, somebody had come to give them all these things. How are we dealing with these things? I'm not suggesting that you should go and arrest those people, but these are signs of much more deeper problem. And look, let's face it, let's not run away from it. Our politics is not addressing the basic necessities of Ghanaian citizens. And in environments where politics is perceived or projected as though it's making some few among the population wealthy and the large majority wallowing in poverty, people tend to place monetary value on what otherwise should be their civic responsibility. And that is what we witnessed in Ejisu. Think about it. We say 47% turned out to vote. But what we are not talking about is that our 52% didn't go to vote.
True.
That is more than half.
It was a market day, I was told.
Well, it doesn't matter. We vote on market days in this country all over. I mean, the late John Kuma had huge numbers. It was
82%.
Exactly. And look at where it has gotten to. What it simply means is that when the party contested against itself, it lost. When the party goes into an election against the major opposition party, it may, of course, it's an MPP stronghold. We may not necessarily win it there, but we will make significant gains because there are a lot of voters in that constituency that clearly are not happy. Some will sit home, some will punish the MPP.
Okay. Let me say happy birthday to Boss Jones. Thank you very much for being an inspiring leader and a guiding me towards success. May this year bring you abundant blessings. That's coming from Solomon Karkari. I want to say a very big thanks to Professor Michael Kwesa-White, who is a senior research fellow with the Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana, Legon, a political scientist, a communications strategist, a communications avatar. Thank you very much, Prof, for your time. Professor John Osai-Kwapong is a CDD fellow, a CDD Ghana fellow, and also a political scientist. Thank you very much, Prof, for your time as well. And also a private legal practitioner. That's a man who is MPP, but is Ghanaian first, who says Ghana is on his heart. The Honorable Andy Appiah-Kubi, MP for Asante Achim North. Thank you so very much, sir. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching Side Pages. Today I didn't have too many questions. It's deliberate. Because when the top guys are here, keep quiet. Have a good day. Bye-bye.